Okay, today I want to take some time and kill two birds with one stone. I want to answer a piece of mail I received, and I want to do a top 5 list. The mail I'm responding to was from a viewer who asked, should they usually buy new guns? Is it a better idea to buy new guns, or is it okay to buy used guns to save some money because they're worried about inheriting other people's problems if they buy used? And that is a valid concern because, you see all day long on the forums like, this gun never worked right, I'm just going to sell it. So you got to be wary of that. But all in all, I find the used gun market to be very reliable and a great source of really good guns at a reduced price. So today I thought I would do a little top 5 list of what I think are the 5 best guns to buy used instead of buying them new. Now, before I get into the list, I want to say that there's one gun that I would tell everyone out there to always buy used. And it's not because the gun's a better bargain on the used market or it's a great gun used. It's for moral reasons. If you're someone like me that's concerned about the Second Amendment, you shouldn't want to give a nickel to Springfield Armory. Those asshats don't deserve a dime from the gun community. So I think you should buy Springfield Armory products used. That way you're not giving the money to Springfield Armory. You're giving your money back to some guy who actually gave their money to Springfield Armory already, maybe before they became such dicks. So if you're going to buy a Springfield Armory, simply on moral grounds, I think you should always buy those used, never buy them new, because those asshats, like I said, don't deserve a penny from the gun community. That being said, let's get on with the actual list. Number 5 on the list is going to be Glock. Any model Glock you want. I think buying Glocks on the secondary market is a better idea than buying them new because there are tons of great Glocks out there at drastically reduced prices. Plus, there's different generations, so you can actually get an older generation that you might like better than the new generations. Glocks are just great guns to buy used. I have hardly ever seen anyone shoot out a Glock. So buying a Glock used is no problem whatsoever. All you got to do is look them over, make sure the basic components are still in great shape, and that gun is usually good to go. And there's usually a lot of them available because of police trade-ins or people who just buy them because of the hype and don't really like them and end up trading them in or selling them off. So there's always a great amount of Glocks available, and they're rugged, sturdy guns, so they don't tend to wear out easily. And even if there is a part of them that goes bad eventually, it's real easy to get parts for them. So that, combined with the fact that I think new Glocks are extremely overpriced, along with most polymer guns, but especially Glocks, buying them used, to me, buying a used Glock is just a better idea than buying a new Glock. Number 4 on the list is Colt 1911s, whichever one you want. Now, the reason I'm singling out Colt 1911s is because I have found that most people who buy Colt 1911s buy them to collect them, or they buy them and baby them and keep them in a safe and shoot them rarely. They buy them because of what they are, how historical they are, or historic, I guess. I don't know if historical is a word, but Colt 1911s are always a great bargain to buy used. Now, sometimes you got to finagle a little bit to find a deal on a Colt because a lot of people still think because it's Colt, it's still worth new value. But most people understand that's not true. So you quite often see a lot of Colts, especially the more common model Colts, 1911s, on the secondary market at a great price. And like I said, because most of them are babied or safe queens, etc., they're usually in great shape. And a 1911 is a very simple gun. It's very easy to do a quick inspection of it when you're buying it to see if it's in great shape. So I think buying a Colt 1911, instead of paying for that name Colt and paying that premium up front, it's better to buy a used Colt 1911 than it is to buy a new one. Number 3 on the list is Smith & Wesson revolvers. pretty much any model of Smith & Wesson revolver you want, as long as they're all metal. Now, I'm not going to extend this same belief to the guns that are made from titanium or unobtainium or whatever they make those ones from that make them so expensive, because I don't know how they're going to wear long term. But as far as all metal Smith & Wesson revolvers are concerned, they're a little bit pricey when you buy them new. Not as pricey as some people think, but they're not super cheap. So if you can save some money on the secondary market, I have never seen anyone shoot a revolver completely to where it's worn out. I have seen people damage hands or damage the timing in some other way, but I've never seen anyone shoot one out. I've never seen a barrel of a revolver, especially a high caliber revolver like a 357 Magnum or a 44 Magnum, that is shot out by your everyday gun lover. And a lot of people buy these revolvers on whims, and then later they get rid of them to get something else. So there are a lot of them on the secondary market at good prices. And like I say, revolvers are also very simple. Just check the lockup, check the timing, etc. When you get them, look down the barrel, make sure the rifling's still there. As long as you're not buying from a professional shooter, you've probably got a pretty good gun on your hands. And timing is fairly easy to fix. And here's another thing, Smith & Wesson, if you send in a timing issue revolver, and a revolver with a timing issue, they will fix it for you because they don't want their guns out there in bad condition. They have great customer service about maintaining their old guns. I have bought used Smith & Wessons that had an issue with them and then called Smith & Wesson and said, hey, I'm like the fourth or fifth owner of this gun and it's got an issue. And they're like, oh, send it to us, we'll take care of it. So Smith & Wesson revolvers are a great buy on the secondary market, like I said, because they're very simple, they're hard to shoot out, and you can get a great bargain on them by buying them secondhand. And you can get older models that have things you might want that aren't available on the new models, like pinned barrels, recessed cylinders, etc. So usually when I'm in the market for a Smith & Wesson revolver, unless it's something brand new that I want to try, I like to check the secondary market first because I think that's the best way to buy a Smith & Wesson revolver. Now, number 2 on my list is the Walther PPK. Now, a lot of people might think this is an odd choice for the list, but listen to me here. Hear me out. Walther PPKs are great to buy secondhand because people who buy them seldomly ever shoot them. Almost every Walther PPK I've seen on the market is in phenomenal shape. The only time I ever really see any damage to them is if they're blued and they've been carried a lot, they have finish issues. Refinishing a gun is easy. Mechanically, they're very sturdy guns. They're a very simple design. They're blowback. It's really hard to mess them up. So people who buy them don't tend to shoot them a lot because they're tiny and .380 is expensive, so they don't get shot a lot. In fact, most PPKs I know of, even the older inner arms models, which you can buy secondhand, are in immaculate condition when I see them. They've been safe queens most of their life. So if you're looking for a Walther PPK, it really pays to check the secondary market. And like I say, you can get some of the older models that a lot of people like better, like mine. I have an inner arms one. So if you like the Walther PPK and you want to buy one, I know they're being reintroduced right now, but I would actually say you might be a little bit better off if you look for one on the secondary market, buy it used, save some money, and get just as good a gun, maybe even a little better. All right, now we're to number 1 on the list. And I'm going to say that even though I've numbered this list, there's really not much difference between 5 and 1. So saying something is number 1 doesn't mean it's the best buy out there used. It's just, it's as good as the others. Because all these guns are great buys used. I just had to number them so we could have some sort of sequence in this video. But that being said, number 1 on my list are Ruger all-steel revolvers. I don't think I have to say much about why these guns are great buys on the secondary market. Rugers are relatively inexpensive to begin with, and on the secondary market, they usually take a pretty big hit in price. They don't have a great resale value. I think that's because a lot of people assume, well, people who buy Rugers use them a lot. I have found that to be true somewhat, but not to the extent that they damage the guns. And Rugers are built like tanks. They will outlast you, your children, and your grandchildren. So will Smith & Wessons, etc. But Rugers are built in a way that they're no frills. They're just really well put together. They're really solid. Now they are a cast build, so it means they're a little thicker, but because of that, they're just a very robust gun. They're not really any stronger than Smith & Wessons, but they're nice, they're simple, they don't have complex mechanisms, and it shows a little bit. The triggers aren't quite as nice, the timing isn't quite as precise, but they are still very functional guns at a great price. And if you buy them on the secondary market, they are rugged, sturdy guns that will usually be as good a condition as they were when they were new if you buy them from someone who bought them new. So Ruger, all steel guns, even their single actions, they're just a great buy on the secondary market because, like I said, you can't wear them out if you try usually. So I doubt the person you're buying from actually tried to wear it out. Like I said, if they're not like a SAS shooter or a professional shooter, chances are that gun's just as good as it was the day it was new, and that means you can get a great gun at a great price. So the Ruger all steel revolvers are number one on my list of best guns to buy used.